So I want to talk about heirs and failures today because that's part of my research and I'm curious in it and I think it's interesting. Lots of people sort of get it all kind of mixed up in what they are, and honestly I didn't know what they were for before I started studying these things. So if you don't know me, I am Professor Dave Massack. I'm Associate Professor of Innovation Strategy and Entrepreneurship, and I created this whole reciprocity project to give back as much as I possibly can. There's so many people who help me out that I want to pay the favor forward to help you out. Errors and failures are a very real part of our life. Most of us do those things, and there's not much we can change. And so what's the difference between them? So an error generally refers to a miscalculation on something, or that there was a problem that resulted, and it was just a miscalculation of what the sort of true value of something actually is. And so there is some error that results from it. So statistically, you often think of random error that's added to what the true value is, and it could be random or it could not be random, right? But here's the difference between a failure. And a failure has a performative aspect to it, in that you are looking at some expectation or aspiration and it's being below what that particular amount or that expectation or aspiration is, right? So one of them, the sort of failure component has, or the failure idea has more of a performative undertone to it, in that you're having some sort of expectation. So because of that, you can, an error can result in a failure, obviously, and a failure can be due to an error, but failures might not be from error at all. You could do everything absolutely perfectly well and do it perfect, and you just fail and it just doesn't work out, and so you have to sort of have a different logic in terms of what you're thinking, right? So error tends to be a little less value laden, I guess, is the sort of idea, but in the sense that there's a whole many more mechanisms behind failure, in the sense of like coming to terms. So what is it that you're trying to match, or what is it you're trying to get to? What is that expectation that you're expecting, or that aspiration that you're expecting? And then how do you measure performance relative to that, right? So an error is about thinking of what the current state of the world is, and now did we actually match to that current state of the world? And if we didn't match to that, then we make some sort of error, or sometimes you might say misjudgment of some sort. So it's challenging to sort of think about these things, but the key thing, I think, with failure that is hard to deal with, and that's the more challenging thing, is the emotional aspects that are a part of it, but also that there's a signaling component to it, right? So there's this whole model behind understanding how behavior works and what we end up doing, right? So failure, it is sort of assuming that we have a model of human behavior, or what I study, organizational behavior, or how organizations sort of work, and they have this sort of expectation of what performance is, right? So they understand what that particular thing is, and then they want to adjust and improve. An error doesn't necessarily mean you need to improve, and you don't need to ever change that particular thing, right? But with a failure, that it assumes that you wanted to do better, and that you want to actually improve and prevent those things from happening, that those whether it's a catastrophic failure from happening, or just kind of more like a behavioral failure that might happen where you're simply adjusting your behavior, and the action that you chose wasn't sort of matching what you're expecting. So what I'm talking about doesn't necessarily have a big epiphany with this particular podcast today, but just know that there's differences between them. And then, the other thing to think about is that this is really extremely powerful. To think that you could do absolutely everything right, not make an error, and still fail, and still result in a moment where something just does not, you just don't meet that performance expectation. You could do that repeatedly over and over and over again and not make an error, not, miscalculate anything, but you just simply don't get there. The reason for that are sort of more system changes or environmental changes, or, you just miscalculated where you should, your expectation is maybe too high or something like that. And so, thinking about that, I think, is very important in terms of where we are and what we think about as human beings, right? As what failure means to us and how do we interpret that. So with that, good luck. Hopefully you learned a little bit, and thanks so much. Take care and have a wonderful day.